The relationship you have with your father, or the absence of it, leaves a mark that lasts long after childhood ends. It shapes how you see yourself, how you trust others, and how you navigate power, authority, and love. This mark is often invisible to you at first. You think your struggles with relationships, work, or self-esteem are random, caused by bad luck or unrelated circumstances. But when you start looking closely, you see a pattern that traces back to the way you experienced your father. This is what psychologists call the father wound, and until you face it, you can never be truly freed. A father wound isn't always about abuse or outright abandonment. It can come from emotional distance, criticism, neglect, or even well-meaning but controlling behavior. It's the lingering sense that you were never fully seen, valued, or protected by the man who was supposed to provide safety and guidance. This wound can follow you into adulthood, quietly influencing the way you act without you realizing it. Some people overcompensate by chasing success to earn approval they never got. Others avoid conflict at all costs, fearing rejection from any authority figure. Some go from relationship to relationship, searching for the fatherly validation they missed as children. The statistics are staggering. Studies show that children who grow up without an emotionally present father are more likely to struggle with depression, substance abuse, and unstable relationships. In one report from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, children from father-absent homes were almost 4 times more likely to be poor, twice as likely to drop out of school, and significantly more likely to end up in prison. These numbers tell us that this wound isn't a poetic metaphor. It has real, measurable consequences, yet many people go through life without ever naming this pain. Society tells men to be stoic and emotionally reserved, so fathers who keep their distance are often excused as just being men. Religion makes it worse. Many religious teachings portray the father as an unquestionable authority, even comparing him to God. This conditioning tells children to accept whatever treatment they receive as part of a divine order, even if it leaves them feeling unseen or unloved. In this way, religion can encourage the suppression of pain instead of healing it. It tells you to honor your father no matter how much damage he caused, as though loyalty is more important than self-respect. That loyalty keeps people trapped. You might feel guilty for admitting your father hurt you. You might believe that questioning him dishonors your family. But avoiding the truth doesn't make the wound disappear. It stays alive inside you, shaping your choices. If your father was overly critical, you might grow up believing you are never good enough. If he was absent, you might attach too quickly to anyone who gives you attention, ignoring red flags because the fear of being left again is so strong. Carl Jung once wrote that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. This means that if your father never confronted his own wounds, he likely passed them to you in the form of his behavior. Maybe his own father was harsh or absent, and he repeated that pattern without thinking. Breaking this chain means facing not just your pain, but also the reality that your father was shaped by his own unhealed wounds. That understanding doesn't excuse the harm, but it can make the healing process clearer. Some people try to heal their father wound by finding father figures in adulthood, mentors, bosses, older friends. This can help, but it often turns into a cycle where you keep seeking external validation instead of building it from within. You measure your worth by someone else's approval, and when they inevitably disappoint you, the old wound reopens. The only way out is to become the authority you needed as a child. This means setting your own standards, protecting yourself, and learning to trust your judgment instead of waiting for someone else to confirm it. Religion often teaches that God is the ultimate father and that you can heal your earthly wounds by submitting to him. This sounds comforting, but it can be another trap. It replaces one authority figure with another, keeping you in a position of dependency. Instead of learning to trust yourself, you keep looking upward for answers, approval, and identity. Jung warned against this kind of spiritual bypassing, using belief to avoid the difficult work of self-examination. Healing means standing on your own feet, not just shifting your dependence from one figure to another. One of the clearest signs of an unhealed father wound is the way you respond to authority. If you had a controlling or unpredictable father, you might automatically resist authority figures, seeing them as threats. Or you might submit too easily, fearing conflict. Either way, your reactions aren't based on the present reality, they're shaped by the past. This can hold you back in work, relationships, and even in how you handle yourself in everyday life. Relationships are another place where the father wound shows up. If you never felt safe with your father, you might struggle to trust your partner. If your father was emotionally unavailable, you might feel drawn to partners who are just as distant, replaying the same pattern over and over. On the other hand, you might cling too tightly, afraid they'll leave. These patterns aren't random, they are the emotional blueprint you learned in childhood. And until you change the blueprint, you'll keep building the same kind of relationships. Healing the father wound isn't about confronting your father and demanding an apology. Some fathers can't give that. Some are gone. Some will never understand what they did. Healing is about acknowledging the truth of your experience without minimizing it. It's about grieving the things you didn't get, even if that grief is uncomfortable. Many people avoid this step because they think grief is pointless. You can't change the past. But grief is how you stop carrying the past into your future. Therapists who work with childhood trauma often say that naming the wound is half the battle. When you can say, "My father's absence made me feel unworthy," you take the first step toward breaking its hold. You stop pretending it didn't matter. You stop blaming yourself for the ways it shows up in your life. From there, you can start rebuilding your sense of worth based on your own values, not on a father's approval you may never get. In many cultures, people cling to the idea that respecting your father means never criticizing him. But real respect for yourself means being honest about how you were shaped. This honesty doesn't erase the good things your father may have done. It simply allows you to see the full picture. Without that clarity, you can't choose a different path for yourself. You end up repeating the same patterns, even when they hurt you. The father wound is not a life sentence. People heal from it every day, but not by avoiding it or hiding behind religion, loyalty, or denial. They heal by facing the truth of their experience, by grieving, and by learning to provide for themselves the things they never received. This isn't about blaming forever. It's about reclaiming the freedom to live without the constant pull of old pain. Freedom doesn't come from pretending the wound isn't there. It comes from doing the work to close it. Until you do, it will keep showing up, in your relationships, in your choices, and in the quiet moments when you're alone with yourself. You'll always feel the shadow of it. But when you face it fully, you stop letting it control you. That's when you become free, not because your father changes, but because you do.